for people to look at later on. But I think with this, we can be very interactive. We've got a great presenter from ACCESS Employment. I think we can very much make this about a conversation, work on specific things, because we got a nice intimate group here. So I'm not going to bore everybody with the TGP pitch, but I'll turn it over to you. We can get started and get to work.
Great. Thank you for giving the opportunity for ACCESS Employment and myself to host this wonderful event. You know what? Everyone's just scattered apart. How about you just come to the front so it's just easier to have a conversation? I know I hate when everyone comes to the front because I'm not that person. But again, it's just easier for you to hear and we can interact. Cool. Thank you so much. So I know it's a very small group. So can we do some introductions, I would say? Cool. So we'll do some introductions, get to know each other. I know it's just only like a couple people over here. So I'll start off with mine just to start off the ball. So my name is Shara Rajendran. I'm an employment consultant at ACCESS Employment. So what I specialize is in employment consulting. So I've been in this career for almost 5 years. So essentially, I help job seekers reach their employment goal, right? Such as like yourselves over here. So pretty much I started working with the youths and then I transitioned work with mature clientele because I started working a sector-focused program. So for engineers, right? At the end of the day, it's just helping people find jobs and help them easily integrate into the Canadian society and to the Canadian engineering labor market. Okay, and also I did my undergrad in criminology and human rights law, and then I transitioned to social service into this field over here in the employment sector. And a little bit about myself, I'm an avid sports fan. I'm big in soccer and basketball, so if there's any sports fans over here, I'm sorry, it might be a little debate after the session. Okay, so again, I would love to turn off the mic to the person over here. Please.
Hi everyone. My name is Bilal Munir, and I'm an IT specialist. So I graduated with like a physics degree, and then I transitioned into data science, and then like straight into IT. Like my family's like from Pakistan, and we came here I think 12 years ago. So it's been a roller coaster. Like uni was hard, but I graduated, so yeah, I'm here now. Yeah, but I just like very recently I got into like the IT space, working in like data centers and like troubleshooting and stuff like that. So that's all. That's about it for me.
I'm Hassan Yusuf from Sudan, surveying engineer. I'm new in Canada, but I work now with the same OTG in the downtown, and came to see what to provide.
Hi, I'm Gerardo Ordonez. I'm a civil engineer with a master's in structural engineering from here in Canada, from Lakehead University. I came here to Canada 2 years ago and currently on my first month off job hunting.
Great. Welcome to Canada, man. Look around. Take a break on job searching here and there, but do look around. And for the folks over here, you guys want to? Cool. Okay. So the point of the session is about, of course, resume building interview, how to better prepare for an interview, right? That's just the number one scare for everyone, for those who are coming from internationally and those who are domestic, myself, right? Because at the end of the day, we do need a job. We do need to survive. But how can we better differentiate from other candidates to get ourselves on the top of the ladder? So let's talk about some different techniques. And then we can also hear from your side, how can you better share some of your best practices? Okay. Again, don't be shy. So, right. Pardon? Again, you never know, because you're coming from university and I'm sorry, you guys are coming from different countries, from different institutions. So there are better other practices, right? So this is the platform where we can share that. Okay, so let's talk about the agenda over here. So in order to build a good resume, how can we better do it, right? So there are so many other forms of resume formats. So let's talk about the different types of formats we have over here. So chronological, functional, and combination. So in the coming slides, we will explain the importance of each format and how that can actually help us to get recognized by employers. Now let's talk about job post analysis, which is really important because not many people take the time to analyze a job post. You know, we just see a job post right on the monitor over here, and then you know what? Since I am a civil engineer and I do see a civil engineer project manager role, I'll apply for it. But however, how many of the skills that the employer is looking for that we job seekers do not have? So now we have to talk about how can we better upskill ourselves to, get the right recognition from the right set of employers, right? Why company research is really important, right? Again, not many people do the company research or the certain techniques of researching a company because that is an interview question, right? So for example, say if I was to ask you, so what do you know about ACCES? That's an engineering company. So if you just know the basics, fine. But if you actually tell and go in detail of the ACCES company, that will get the recognition of like, okay, so it looks like this participant has took the time to analyze not only the job description, but more about our company and how up and beyond did they go with the company research, right? And how to better compare and contrast, right? So again, that goes back to your company research, right? So again, have your resume on one screen and your job description on another screen and just see, okay, so how do I better align with my skill set to the company's values and morals, right? So we'll talk about the traffic light system. I know many of you guys will be saying, what is the traffic light system over here, right? So this is a certain method that I learned from LinkedIn Learning. So again, please to take serious with LinkedIn Learning. Again, depends if you're able to pay for it. And using key buzzwords, right? So it's just a matter of fact, meaning using the industry keywords over here. Last but not least, interview techniques, which we all hate, but we have to go through, right? So let's talk about the different interview formats over here. And also the activities under different stages of the interview. And also we'll touching upon the different types of interview questions that we also have to be prepared for. Okay. And again, if I'm talking really fast or if you don't get anything, just raise your hand up or you can just tell, hey, Shara, just slow down because I tend to talk a little fast. Okay. Cool. So let's talk about the strategy number one. Okay. So let's talk about the Parsons trait and factor model over here. So this is a model over here. There's two screens you can see. This is something that I learned from my course with Career Canada Professionals. Okay. So this is one of the theories that I use in my cohorts. Right, because I'm a facilitator, so I do run cohorts every month, right? So let's talk about the knowledge of self. Who are you as an individual, as a job seeker, right? So how do you know that your skill set is aligned with the current labor market, right? So there are thousands of jobs out in the labor market, but as a job seeker, how can you better differentiate which job or company that best aligns with your skill set, your values, and also your morals? Because at the end of the day, you need job satisfaction. And if your skill sets are recognized and acknowledged, two key words, recognition and acknowledgement. Again, I'm not here to badmouth or anything like that, but we live in a reality where not many employers do recognize hard work, right? And also ideal career choices based on matching personal traits. So I'll tell you this straight up. People do think experience is number one on the plate, but the more I grew in my career, I come to know that personality is your number one trait over here. Who here agrees with me or not? Personality is number one or experience is number one? You guys can say it. Okay.
Like you need to be able to get along with your colleagues, be able to, in order to work in a team. Because if you're not gonna be personable, then you're gonna have a hard time kind of getting your goals accomplished. And yeah, yeah.
That's a very good answer. And also with good personality, that's good exposure in the company as well, if you want to move up the ladder, right? So I'll give you my example. So with my kind of presentation, I usually give a lot of personal explanation so I can better relate to my crowd, right? So in my experience, so after I finish my internship and co-ops from other employment providers, I do a little debrief. Okay, so what did I do good in? What I do need to improve on? So what they have been telling me, which my employers, your personality has pretty much got you up in the ladder because the way you have communicated, not only with your clients, but with your team, right? If you have a good personality that's able to mesh within your team, you're able to grow and expand, right? So that's why I take personality on number one. And I tell my participants that although not many people are extroverts or introverts, I totally understand that, but do your best to, practice your communication styles, right? Have a one-on-one and then see if you're able to be comfortable with that person and then expand it to 2 people, 3 people and more. Okay. And also, how can we differentiate our academic credentials versus our occupational credentials? Now, who here wants to take a jab at the differences between the two? Anyone? There's no right or wrong answers. The differences between an occupational credential and an academic credential.
If it's occupational, that would just be like your regular job experience. All the places that all the skills that you've developed over the years, and your academics would be like the schools that you went to, or your like the university or degree, whatever qualification you were able to obtain. So
What about the
Same. I don't know.
What about the fellow over there?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with what he said.
No problem, no problem. All right, I'll take from here. Thank you. All right, so you guys have explained what academic credentials are, but the occupational credentials. So for instance, since an engineer, okay? So since we have two civil engineers, but one is a project manager and one is in drafting, right? And correct me if I'm a little wrong on this. So say to apply for a job in ACON, you need a project manager designation, but however, you just have the project coordination experience and drafting. Now, as an employer, I would look at, okay, not only the academic credentials, because both of you guys have graduated and done the same academic background. Now, I have to differentiate now, how can I kind of put A and B on the same level? Or, how can I put them in a different level, right? So therefore now, since B has a PMP designation and he has project management experience, now we have A who has heavy experience in project coordination, but no PMP. Now, who do you think will have a slightly leverage over here? One with the designation or one with the heavy experience? Experience? What about you? There we go. So you're saying with the designation, right? Correct, right? So that's why when it comes to job searching, know what the employers are looking for and then see how you can better upskill yourself, right? So in a sense, say if we have two project managers over here, so see and consult with your resources, right? So check out different employment providers or your previous colleagues, or even the institutions that you graduated here. Connect with them and then see what are some credentials that I need to upskill myself to differentiate another candidate, right? So that's what it calls a knowledge of self. First, understand yourself to see how can I better position myself in this competitive market, and see which area of the competitive market that you can upskill in. Okay. Now let's talk about knowledge of work. What do I need to do to get there? Okay. So knowing your resources over here, right? So in a sense, when it comes to knowing your resources, employment providers around you. So I'm pretty sure you heard of like YMCA, Achieve, ACCES, Korean Foundation and such, right? And also academic institutions. What are certain certifications that you need to pursue in certain colleges to get that designation or a certification to qualify that? Okay, I have an AutoCAD certification. I have a PMP designation. I have a PEng. So what, right? So use different skills to develop platforms to help you understand what employers are looking for in this competitive market, right? And again, see if you need to upskill or reskill at the end of the day. So say if you're coming from Iran, right? So the Iranian labor market might be different from the Canadian labor market. So sometimes the certifications can be a little different or not really recognized. So how can you reskill yourself? What institutions will cover that certificate and add it to your profile, right? And say if you're not in that stage of pursuing the certificate or like whatever that skill is, now explain to the employer like, okay, how can my skills can better align with the job description by using a methodology? It's called a SAR methodology, but I'll touch that on a later slide. Okay, and also identify the gaps within your abilities and the job market demands, utilizing your resources to pursue different certifications that you need to increase the opportunities to get jobs, right? So for example, in my field, right, it's either you have to have a social service degree, right? But however, there are different streams, right? You can go to social work, employment and such. So I chose the employment route because of course it kind of fits my personality. I like to talk, right? As you can see, right? So, and then again, try to look at other profiles online. Who here has LinkedIn? Perfect. Who take the time to look at other people's LinkedIns? Super awkward, right? But again, it kind of gives you an idea what they have. That's something that you don't. And then that's something where you can establish a relationship, which I will talk about in the later slide. So now that's of knowledge of work. How can you now understand yourself, now put yourself to work? That will equal matching. So therefore, once you understand the two profiles over here and understand what are the employers looking for, what are the recruitment standards and the employment standards to better make you successful. Okay, now resume building. So I'll ask you a question over here. Who here ever wanted to just submit one resume to all employers? Just to save some time. You? Okay, cool. So since you guys are coming from different countries, right? So do you guys have the practice of, submitting one resume or multiple resumes? Multiple tailored resumes? Multiple tailored? No. What about before? Right. Okay, so submitting one resume, how did that go though? Right, and now submitting different tailored resumes, how did that go? At least getting an interview though. Yeah. Good. Okay, good. But what about the other others over here? Have you guys getting at least interviews with submitting multiple resumes or submitting one resume at a time? Multiple resume. Okay, cool. So now this is where resume building will help you. How to improve your resume building and restructure your resume, because at the end of the day, in order to get an interview, you have to have a good resume, right? So that's like 50% of you getting the job. The other 50% now, how are you going to better advocate yourself? So we will talk about that in this slide, right? So it like roughly it will take at least 7 seconds to analyze an applicant's resume. Yes, you might think 7 seconds, that's so quick. How come an employer cannot scan throughout the whole resume? Because there's like 100 applicants over here, right? So whatever you have in your first page has to entice the reader, right? So if you, as I mentioned in the previous slide, if you have the keywords, if you properly looked at the job description, now, is that going to grab my attention, right? So now let's talk about how can it better structure your resumes over here. So who here worked with these kind of resume formats over here before? Chronological, functional, and combination. Have you guys worked with some such similar resume formats? Which one? Functional, okay. Good. And okay. And what about you, Jens? I mean, you can take like a job at it. Right. Okay, cool. So now let's talk about the breakdown of these 3 formats and how can it better, best align with your skill sets and your profiles that you guys have, right? Because at the end of the day, there's no such standard of what is the right resume format. It all depends on the skill set and the profiles you guys have, right? So let's talk about chronological. So job seekers with a strong and steady progression. What it means? So therefore, you guys have a strong employment retention. So therefore, like every couple of years, there's no gap. There's no gap in your resume. There's a constant career progression, right? So it pretty much lists your experiences and in reverse chronological order for your most recent to your latest. I see some resumes, they put dates all over the place, which kind of, make it look really disorganized. And organization is really important, right? Because at the end of the day, it tests your writing skills. So as an industry professional, writing is one of the prominent skills that you must have, right? And I'm pretty sure everyone in this room can, right? Okay. And also employers can scan your progress in your resume and also in your career. So for those who have a constant, steady career progression, the chronological will be your format. Now let's talk about functional. So this is a very interesting case, right? So job seekers who are changing careers, re-entering into the workforce, or maybe who have a career gap, right? Not many people do not like to put a career gap on the resume because what if it gives like a negative outline, right? Which is false. I do come across many clients who are really scared to put career gaps in their resumes because they don't want to get a negative outlook. But however, it shows the employer what you have been doing throughout your gap, if you explain it right? So for example, say if for a mother who was conceived and now is taking care of a kid, it's been at least 2-3 years. Okay. So within the 2-3 years, what were you doing? Aside from your familial side, but more professional side. So what were you doing to upgrade your skills, right? So did you attend like a couple month program, right? Did you attend an employment provider who offer like hybrid services to you, right? So this is what employers would like to see, because not only like you're dealing with familial responsibilities, now how are you doing to get out of your shell and get back into the workforce, right? So again, this is where you have to highlight your skill sets, right? So say if you do not have a steady progression, now highlight your specific skill set that can grab the attention of the employer, right? So again, say if you're in finance, right? So again, like bookkeeping or accounting. So those are some of your skills. Again, correct me, folks, right? I'm not in the accounting field. Okay. So now mention to the employer like myself, hypothetically. So what are some key prominent skills that you can tell me that you have done in bookkeeping? So using the SAR model again, I've been mentioning this SAR model so many times, but I'll mention this in the next slide, which will benefit you. Now, this will highlight your abilities rather than drawing attention to the employment gaps and unrelated roles, right? So again, do not list a bunch of roles. I would say stick to at least 3 top skills that would resonate to the job description. Now, hybrid or combination, technically they're the same, it's just 2 different terms. So it's a combined element of the chronological and functional, right? So then you would have like your summary qualifications, and then you would have core skills and technical skills, right? So for you who are in the technical field, so in the IT field, so mention your IT applications, right? Like C++, Java, and such. And for the civil engineer, like if you have like your, don't mention your PMP because that's just a certificate, but your technical skills are your hard skills, right? So say if you have like your AutoCAD 2D or 3D or such, right? Do not mention a huge list, but mention within 4 points, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to have at least 2 pages. Okay. So for core experiences is the combined of your technical and your soft skills, right? So that's something that you can kind of safely mention if you don't have a lot of points to mention in your summary qualifications. Okay. A well-researched resume incorporates information showing the employer that you have tried to research the company and the job. And I guarantee you this will come back to you if you do not follow these certain steps, because that's what actually happened to me in the first place. So when I was new into my career, I was a job seeker just like you guys. So I was, desperate to get a job, right? However, I did miss a step. No company research. I did not analyze the job post properly. Now there was a question. What do you know about the role? How would the role benefit you? And what can you relate to the role using your experiences? Although I had the experience, but I did not do a good job in best aligning what the employer wants to hear, right? Because I skipped that step. So therefore, every interview is a learning curve, right? If you miss one step, the next interview you get, now you know how you can learn from that, right? And also revise your finished resume. Do not send it to one person, 2 people. I send it to like at least 3-4 people, including my closest friends and to my colleagues, right? Because at the end of the day, in your eyes, it seems it's perfect, but in another eye, they can pick up something, that can change, right? So always revise your documents, any documents, your resume and or your LinkedIn's. Okay. Okay. Now, how to customize for each employer. Now, use top skills identified in the job post. So I know I'll be talking about the traffic light system in the later slides, but however, try to bold certain keywords or highlight, right? So you can keep a track of what skills you may not have and what skills you need to reskill. Prioritize and content highlight examples which demonstrate these skills. So do not just mention your responsibility. Give me an example. Tell me a story, right? So if you're a project manager who have experience managing $50 million building project, okay. So tell me about your project management skills. How many teams did you manage? How many? What was the budget that you kind of did, like in procurement and logistics, right? Using keywords that makes you best fit into this role. right? So again, look at the job posting and find keywords, although it may not resonate you to the fullest because in your previous labor market, it's not previously used. But however, in the Canadian labor market, you have to use certain terminologies to get the right attraction. So then the employer will know, like, okay, so it looks like this person has read the job description and he's able to relate it to his resume. Now, job post analysis, really important, folks. Okay, so who here has a common practice of doing a research in anything, finding out food reviews, tourist attractions, anything? Who does reviews for that? At least majority of you guys, right? I see some heads, right? So put that same practice into your company research, right? Again, I'm going to say this again, and I'm going to heavily emphasize this because if you do not do your company research properly, you will lose points, right? So what are some strong candidates and failing to research company will lead to the following you see over here, right? So low employee engagement, overlooking some of the red flags, failing to ask relevant questions after the interview, which is really important because that will stimulate the conversation, right? Because after you complete the interview, you must have some sort of questions to, like, relate to the employer or to the company itself. Unpreparedness, right? So again, interview nervousness will come. So therefore, if you do not do your research properly, it will affect you during the interview. And poor impression during the interview as well, right? So no matter how much you better portray yourself in the interview, impressions do matter, which will start from company research. Now, how can you better analyze the role to see if it aligns with your skill sets and vision the organization itself, right? So as an example, you see over here, you have your resume, have it side by side, right? And highlight what skills do I have and what I don't have by using the traffic light system over here. Again, this is a certificate that I did, well, a program in LinkedIn Learning, right? So I've been using this every time when I've been starting this job as well. And it has successfully has shown in participant resumes when they get interviews because they're able to track what skills they need to upskill and reskill, right? So it's able to differentiate what skills that you need to improve on, right? Looking for key buzzwords. So as you see over here, like as an engineer, right? Because I'm relating to you the most because I'm from the engineer program. Right? So if you have AutoCAD, Lean Sigma 6, team player, communication, those soft skills and hard skills. Okay. So say if you have majority of the skills, how confident can you apply for it? Right? And then say if you have a little less skill sets than what the employer is looking for, then I would say, pause and then look at your resources to see where you can better upskill yourself. Right? So the 4 components of this job search is job position, responsibilities, requirements, context, and personal characteristics, right? Your resume is pretty much telling the employer a story about your employment career, right? Okay, now let's break down the traffic light system. So we'll try to quantify this, right? Red, I'm pretty sure it says by the color, right? You absolutely don't have nothing. But however, it's not the end of the world, right? Because at the end of the day, we have different life circumstances. So this is something that you can reflect on. Okay, so make a list of what skills you don't have now. Then think, okay, now how and where I can better improve on it. Yellow, you'll have at least 30 to 50% of skills or qualifications for this role. Now you can kind of, pick up the momentum over here. So this can help you decide if you're fit for the role or not. And how can you improve on the skills that you're currently lacking in, right? And then green is pretty much if you have 85 to 90% that matches the job description, then now you can confidently apply. However, with the yellow, you can still apply for the job, but I would say it's more of like a 50-50 in my experience as well, right? So say if you find at least 50% of the skills that you find in the yellow section and for the job, still apply for it. It shows the employer like, okay, so even if you don't have that much skills, what if you are willing to relearn them? Some employers are willing to train you. Right? That's what most employers are doing nowadays, right? Because we're not equipped to get all the skills all in from every part of the world, right? So therefore, we seek training. But it all depends how proactive you are. Okay, now, interviews. So who here has interview anxiety? This is a safe space. So who has interview anxiety? Okay, I'm raising my hand up because this happened multiple times, right? So tell me if you want, or if you can you share some of your interview experiences? How did you overcome that interview anxiety? And also, what were some of your best practices? Which will introduce this topic. Anyone want to share their story or no? I'm not putting the pressure on you guys. Okay. Right. Which is correct actually, because an interview is just pretty much like an open dialogue. It's just like having a conversation, because at the end of the day, they're testing your personality right there. Right. So start off with a small talk. You guys know what a small talk is? So it's like having like a friendly conversation, but in a formal way, right? So for example, say if you're the employer and I'm the job seeker, right? So let's talk about the communicate. Well, you know what? We'll touch the communication styles later. Okay. So say if you see me really intense, I'm giving you one-word answers. Now, how would that make you feel? Right. Right. Now, say if like I'm really conversive, like I mean, I'm rolling the ball and continue the conversation. Now, as an employer, what do you see? And therefore, the employer has picked up two important soft skills: team player and communication, right from that conversation, right? But however, it's an experiment. So when I was first doing my interviews, I was really like stiff and I had a lot of scare in me, right? But then I also asked for feedback. So how can I better improve on my interview skills? So therefore, I have to loosen up a bit, small talk, converse, right? So we'll talk about what employers want to know. So as you see over here, why are you here in the first place? Why are you in front of me, right? To get a job and also to contribute, okay? Now, pardon? I mean, that too. That should be on the last of your list, right? Now, what can you do for us? So as a applicant or future staff, now what can you do to contribute into my company and to my team? What kind of person are you, right? We all have a mixed bag. We're like a mixed bag of Skittles, different personalities. But how can we better contribute our personality into the team and how we can better represent ourselves to the clients? What distinguishes you from 9 other people who have the same skill as you, right? So say all 3 of you guys have project management designations. Now, it's a matter of fact, how can you better advocate yourself? Giving different examples. Using the SAR method, again, I'm mentioning that. Can I afford you? Right? Again, different organizations may have different capacities to train and do other such, right? And also giving yourself to the organization for you to move up, right? Now, these are different interview formats. Who here in this group have gone through such formats like this? And if you can share an experience, if you wish. You've gone through it? Do you want to mention which one? Correct. Okay. Do you have like an experience you want to share? Yeah. Hmm. There we go. So I'm not going to say the more you fail is better. The more you fail, you learn a lot. That's what happened to me, right? I'm not Mr. Perfect over here, right? I've been through multiple interviews, but in those multiple interviews, I did flunk. But in those flunked interviews, how did I learn? What did I do wrong? How can I improve? Exactly what you guys have mentioned, right? So of course, these interview formats, how can you better prepare for them, right? So we'll talk about the telephone interview, one-on-one, panel, technical, and informal. Informal is really is one of the easiest, right? But however, it all depends on your approach and communication style, which we will touch later on. Okay, now the STAR method is here. I've been mentioning this 1,000 times. Okay, so who has been using this method in their resumes? or any of your profiles. So situation, action, result. When you're writing your resumes, have you guys used such similar method or no? No? Okay, no problem. So now how can we better use this methodology in our resume, right? So this is where now we can tell a story to the employer. So situation, so set up a story by describing what challenges you have faced. So give me like a specific situation. So again, if you're in engineering, like if you're in project management, okay, now tell me a specific project, right? That's a situation. So that's just the beginning. Now we'll talk about the middle, action. Describe what exactly you have done to contribute to the project and what difference did it make, right? So now you're going to tell me what have you done to make sure this project is, of course, intact and it's going to be successfully completed. But however, talk about the challenges too, right? Because there's no such thing as a perfect story. There has to be ups and downs in the story as well. Result. Now, what's the outcome? So tell me that this situation has a positive outcome to it. And now how can you give me confidence that, so if you come across a situation that is challenging, how can you overcome that, right? And also another tip, try to quantify your resume as well. And if you can give some quantifying facts in your interview, because employers love numbers, right? I'm not going to say you should give like exact numbers, but at least a rough estimate, right? Now, let's talk about 3 modes of communication. So I've mentioned communications is your #1 skill, right? You guys must have. Now, how can you better master it? So as you see over here, when it comes to visual, right, how it looks like. So how some people have done in-person interviews or like Zoom interviews, right? So in a sense, the employer will listen to you, but they will also watch you, your body language, how you better, get in the right attire, right? Vocal, so your tone, right? So in a sense, I know you're nervous, so some people tend to stutter, right? In a sense, how can you better practice that, right? And how can you reduce the amount of times you're saying, like, us, right? Because I know myself, I've said that all the time, but it has improved. And I'm pretty sure you guys have a wallet too. Verbal, now what to say? How can you better organize your thoughts and verbalize it, right? So now let's look at some data over here. Now, 55% of visual refers to body language and image, right? So as you see over here, I talk a lot with my hand. You can see my microphone's going in and out, right? So I do talk a lot with my hands and my body, right? So therefore, that's just my personality right there. And your image, so how you look, how you impress the interview just by attire itself. 38 by vocal, refers to the tone of voice and pacing, right? So I know maybe some of you guys have hired people in the past. So depending on how can you catch each person's words? Some people might go too fast, some people might go too slow, right? And you can kind of see it in their faces too. So this is where you have to observe what and how the employer is reacting to your saying, right? And of course, to your tone. Some people come from different parts of the country where, your tones are really strong, right? So now when you're in the Canadian labor market, now how can you mitigate that tone where it doesn't sound too aggressive or sound too, silent? 7% verbal refers to the actual words used during an interview, right? So this is where you have to be a little careful of how you use the words in certain parts of your interview, what words to use, because some people tend to use slang in their interviews as well. I'm pretty sure some of you guys have come across such candidates before, right? Because again, it's just become really habitual, right? Some people just tend to talk as if like we're just talking to another person, but we tend to forget the environment that we're in, right? So that's how I would say, try to practice or look at a mirror and just look at yourself and see how you're communicating yourself. You can see that. It actually works. FYI, I tried that. It sounds super weird, but I tried it. Okay. Now, what are some steps to prepare for an interview, right? Find out the details of who you're getting interviewed by, where, so what's the location? Is this going to be happening in a virtual session? Is it going to be in person, right? So now post-COVID, now most employers are pushing to in person, which is, I find it more better, so we can see them face value, right? And then when, really important, because some people tend to get confused of when their interview is, right? So this is where you have to analyze the email that you receive, when, where, and who you will be contacted, and where the interviews will be conducted, right? So that's what I would say. Put this in your calendars, put in all your reminders. Research the company. I put that in red again because I'm going to emphasize it as well. Research the company before you go into an interview. That can be the first question in your interview. So what do you know about the company? Why do you want to join our company? Right. Find out as much as possible about the position, right? So not only talk about your past experiences, but now talk about how can your past experiences can better relate and align to the new role that you're going to be applying to, right? Prepare and practice answering questions, right? So in a sense, you can pick out, well, after you read your job descriptions, try to create at least the most basic questions from your job description, and then see how you can better answer it. Prepare backup materials, right? So who here has been to an in-person interview at least over here? Yeah, have you guys been to an in-person interview? Okay, so what documents do you bring in your file? Your resume? Anything else? Okay. So for me, I would say I have a copy of your resume, cover letter, your academic certificates, and also have your list of references ready as well, because you never know, some employers might be asking references on the spot. But it's good to be prepared, right? And also prepare your own list of questions. I would say maxed 2 to 3 questions, right? Because at the end of the day, you don't want to prolong the interview, right? Now, who here understands the term of illegal questions? Anyone? Okay. Anyone want to explain what is an illegal question is? There's no right or wrong answer. Answer? Anyone? Okay. So an illegal question is pretty much asking a question that is not the norm of interview questions, right? So for example, say if from my back home country, like say if, so Shara, are you married? Do you have kids? Right? So in my home country, that's just an appropriate question, right? So I'll be like, yes, I'm happily married, I have kids, so and so and so. Now here, again, it all depends the intention, right? So say if someone asked me the same question here, then if I was to know what an illegal question is, then I would see how can I better divert it without being aggressive about it. Because at the end of the day, you have to be diplomatic of how you answer certain questions, right? Because it can seem a little discriminatory, right? But it all depends how diplomatic you are when it comes to answering, because I know some people do come across a little aggressive when they answer some illegal questions, right? So these are some of the examples: race, color, religion, sex and gender, age, disabilities, political views, marital and familial status, and height and weight. Is there anything that you can add on to this list? Anything? Okay, no problem. Again, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Okay. Now, let's talk about the do's and don'ts in an interview, right? This is really important because it's good to have this list so you can see how you can better prepare yourself. And say if you did not pass the interview, now what can you add to the list, right? So these are some of the do's and don'ts that I have practiced in my cohorts as well, because we all have different interview styles and practices, right? So we have dress professionally and arrive on time. Time management is really important, folks, right? I know we're humans. We have a lot of, life circumstances over here, but at least try to arrive to your interview on time. So what's the appropriate time to arrive to your interview? You can shoot out a number. 10 minutes? I'm sorry? Okay, that's good. So at least I would say 10 to 15 minutes, just to be on the safe side. Half an hour? Perfect, right? So you can just, wander off and then see where's the right place and then take a break. And then you can also prepare for your interview, right? So I would say 10 to 15 minutes is more ideal. And dress professionally, please. So when in previous job fairs, I did come across certain participants who may come in hoodies and jeans, right? Even though we did give the memo, but again, it kind of deteriorates their chance of getting a job, because at the end of the day, your impression matters, right? So just a basic shirt, tie, dress pants, and for my female folks, dress pants, a blazer, and shirt, right? Greet your interview with a firm handshake and a smile. Do not do this in a creepy way, because that happened to me once. Because once we did a mock interview, well, he's a little bigger than me, so he grabbed my hand as a handshake, and he actually squeezed it, right? But it's a firm handshake, a really firm handshake. Strong dude, right? So, and also smile a bit. Don't look as if you're gonna creep the other person, right? We all seen horror movies, so please don't smile too hard. Okay, so try to be really genuine, be soft, and soft in personality to give a firm handshake, right? Don't give a sloppy one, just give a firm handshake. It gives that, okay, you're confident, right? Be honest about your skills and experience. I'm going to emphasize really heavy because nowadays we do see people and come across certain job seekers who tend to fabricate information on their resumes, right? Of course, you know, in certain circumstances, people tend to do that, right? But again, the employers will put you to the test, folks, right? So try to be honest as much as you can, and then say if you're unable to back it up, you have to own up to it. It's rather to be honest than get caught, right? Show enthusiasm and an interest for the role. Yes, I know we all want the job and the money, right? But now, how can we show enthusiasm? How can we show that, you know, I really want the job? How can I better show that I'm a perfect candidate, right? So this is where you can, you know, show your interest and based on your research and from your past experience to tell them like, okay, so this is how I can deem as a qualified candidate. Prepare and practice for a common interview questions. So I'm not going to really touch about that because we did talk about it in the previous slide. Now, don'ts. Exactly the opposite of do's, right? Don't oversell yourself, right? Those who have at least 15, 20, 30 years of experience. Some folks tend to oversell themselves, which kind of cause some intimidation to employers. Or two, that is just they're over, like, I don't want to, how would I say this? Is that it's just showing that they're overly qualified. That's the word, right? You want to like underqualify and overqualify yourself, and extra information, right? Stick to the dialect that you want to talk into based upon the job description. Do not teach the interviewer about the role, right? Then pretty much you're applying for the role. So don't teach the employer, yes, this is what I know about the role. Now I know what I do, know what to do for it, right? So share your experiences, share like the successes and the challenges, right? Don't lie or exaggerate on your resume or in your answers, right? Again, they'll put you to the test, right? So nowadays there's a lot of simulations, presentations, and even assignments that's due on the day of to prove that you have this experience, right? Don't arrive late or appear disorganized, right? I'm pretty sure everyone in this room has arrived to their interviews on time, hopefully, right? But is there anything else that you want to add on to this list? Be as professional? In what way? Okay, we did not have that on the list, so the tone, okay. Perfect, okay. Well, you can't get in an interview if you have nothing to relate to, right? Right, you have to relate, that's the key word. Okay, anyone else in this room? Okay. Now, what are you supposed to do after the interview, which is really important because not many people have that practice because, you know, after an interview, it's like finishing your exam. I'm done, right? So always debrief, talk to your friends, your peers, even like your employment consultants, like myself. So like, hey, Shara, like I just completed an interview. This what happened. These are the questions that they asked me. Now, can you give me some feedback of how did I do my interview based on the information that I mentioned to you and the questions that I asked? Right. Who here has been sending thank you emails after their interviews? Good, perfect, right? For those who do not have that practice, it's okay. Start to, you know, see how employers react to it. Some employers may respond, some employers may not. Again, don't take that to heart, right? So at least send a thank you letter within 24 hours, right? So then the employer will know like, okay, so it's still fresh in your minds that I have done an interview with Shara for this position at my company, right? And always leave your contact information. So like your number, email, and your LinkedIn link, right? So they can directly look at your LinkedIn and possibly establish a connection, right? And also, before I want to touch this, sorry. Oh. So who here has done an informational interview? Do you know, so can you tell us what an informational interview is? Right. But never ask for a job right away. I know we all want to, right? But at the end of the day, you want to establish a relationship because you never know if that person will be your reference, right? So that's what I usually tell my participants, right? So do not dive in, click connect, be like, hey, I need a job. No, right? So just ask them, what are some tips and tricks or if you can give me some guidance to get back into my field? Because in my back home country, this is who I was. Now I'm starting as a fresh slate. What do I need to get back on my feet? What do I need to do? Right. And also connect with people through the jobs tab. So say, for example, at Metrolinx, one of our partners over there outside. So go on the LinkedIn page, the job people's tab, and then see which specific individual that you want to connect that best resonates to your profile. So say if you see another project manager in Metrolinx, connect with that person, right? And then you can use that individual in your cover letter as well. Right, so that will show the employer like not only you have connected with my staff, but you engage in a conversation where like he or she may have possibly helped you to get this role, and it will give a good outlook to yourself and to that established connection. Right? Yes, I know it's a little awkward of connecting random people on LinkedIn. It's like connecting with people on your social media platform, just adding people. However, in LinkedIn, it's a little, I would say, safe because it's like a professional Facebook. Right? So everyone can openly see your professional side of yourself, right? So that's how I would highly encourage you as new job seekers to connect with people online, even people in this room as well, right? Like, hey, do you have LinkedIn? Right? So it shows that you're eager, you want to connect, you want to converse, right? So whatever event that you guys go to, connect, and even with the employers after the interview. So that's how I would say add all of your contact information in your email as well. Okay, so this is my contact information. So if you guys want further employment tips, we have other resources in ACCESS Employment, other consultants as well, right? So again, you guys can take a picture or note it down, right? And for my civil engineer, nudge, nudge, you have to take this down. Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, so that concludes my presentation, and I want to thank you all for being here and listening to my presentation. Thank you. Oh, we do? Perfect.
Do you think it's handy to have a sheet of a company / organization products or services where you can refer to during a virtual interview?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Do you think it's handy to have like a sheet on the company's product or services during a virtual interview?
Well, if it's a virtual interview, of course, I hope you guys don't read it off the screen or on a paper, right? Because they will see where your eyes are looking at, right? So of course, it's better to practice, right? And you can have cue cards too. So just have some jot notes of what you want to mention about the company, right? But again, don't list off everything on your sheet because it's going to be a little too obvious that you're just reading off of something. So it's always better to practice your dialogues, and then at least if you forget most of the points, at least mention at least your top 2 or 3. That answers the question.
Okay. And how should I position myself if the employer prefers hiring a former employee or someone from a related internal department?
Well, at the end of the day, mention how did you establish that relationship with that person that you've connected, right? So for example, like how I mentioned, say if you were doing an informational interview with that specific individual from like an event like today or like at LinkedIn, right? Now tell the employer, okay, so this is how we connected, how did it benefit me? And this is how confident I can feel that with this relationship, I can kind of take this to another level to help me move up the ranks in this organization.
Okay, and last one, should you send a personalized intro and message to the hiring team or hiring manager on LinkedIn prior to your interview?
It's better to surprise them who you are. right? Because of course you don't want to overdo yourself, right? At the end of the day, you want to let the employer give that kind of notion, like, okay, this is how Shara is, because when you go in an interview, you have to have some things to say. If you put everything before the interview, it's going to be a little difficult for you to introduce yourself, right? So that's why I was saying small talk is really important, right? So for you, like just talking to your peers or like even your parent, your friends, whoever, start doing that small talk, because it's not only for interviews, even like when you're outside, like at a bus stop or like at a job fair, it all starts from there, because you never know who you're going to bump into that might benefit you in the long run. Right? And personally, that has helped me, which has improved my communication style. So I know English has been a second, third, fourth language to many, right? So employers will be a little lenient, right? But the matter of fact, how can you think of like, okay, now how can I better improve on my communication style? Which by conversing people. So that's another point I will give. Okay, anyone have any questions in this group? No? Perfect, perfect. What a great way to end the day. Thank you, everyone. And I wish you guys all the best. Thank you.